To impress his girlfriend, a billionaire jumped off his yacht and performed a diving stunt. But his girlfriend wasn't impressed. She said, "If you're really brave, jump off that cliff instead." Without hesitation, the billionaire went straight to the edge, dove headfirst into the water, and never resurfaced. Today's story is about the Russian adventure film Dikaya. Liza waited for a long time, but when the billionaire still didn't appear, she got upset and said she'd head back on her own, only to realize she didn't know how to operate the yacht. Asking for help was impossible. The area was remote with no signal. Left with no choice, she decided to try navigating it herself. After randomly pressing buttons, the yacht started spinning in circles, making Liza dizzy. In a panic, she pulled out the key to stop it, but her sudden movement caused the key to fly into the water. Luckily, the yacht came to a stop, but a new problem quickly emerged. Liza noticed that not far ahead was a waterfall, and the yacht was drifting straight toward it. Panic set in. Her first instinct was to jump into the water and escape, but just as she was about to leap, she remembered, she didn't know how to swim. That's when she spotted a life ring. Without thinking, she tossed it into the water, only to realize right after that she had done something incredibly foolish. With no other option, she retreated into the cabin, curled up tightly, and prayed to make it through. Eventually, the yacht was swept over the edge of the waterfall. Fortunately, it wasn't very high, and Liza ended up safely drifting to shore. Though she had made it to land, she was now stranded in the middle of nowhere, and getting out wouldn't be easy. Still, Liza didn't seem to grasp how serious the situation was. Even now, she made time to do her skincare routine, put on makeup, and dressed in a red dress and high heels, proving that elegance never goes out of style. She began walking along the riverbank, not paying attention to where she was going, her head down. Suddenly, she noticed a trail of footprints on the ground. She looked up, and was startled to see a brown bear in front of her. The bear had already spotted her and charged. Liza ran as fast as she could, but in high heels, she didn't get far before falling. In a panic, she took off her high heels and threw them at the bear. To her surprise, the bear stopped and began licking her shoes non-stop. Just like that, Liza narrowly escaped danger. She then ventured deeper into the forest. As night fell, the temperature dropped significantly. She tried to start a fire by rubbing sticks together, but of course, it didn't work. Most people can't pull that off on their first try. As she was about to pass out from the cold, she suddenly saw a furry creature ahead and was so frightened that she turned and ran, tripped, and fainted. The next morning, she woke up and realized the creature was actually a white fox, cute and harmless. Even more surprisingly, the fox seemed friendly toward her. Sensing her hunger and thirst, it led her to a pond. Liza didn't know how to fish, but she spotted some mushrooms nearby and picked a few. She used her maxed-out credit card, $10,000 in debt, as a knife, and her perfume as seasoning to cook a meal. Unfortunately, the mushrooms were poisonous. Not long after eating, she passed out again. Luckily, being beautiful has its perks, at least it wasn't the end. A few hours later, Liza woke up and saw white smoke rising in the distance. Thinking someone had made a campfire, she ran toward it in excitement, only to discover it was actually a forest fire. Just as she stood there in despair, a burning tree collapsed and fell straight toward her. Fortunately, she wasn't injured, but her leg was firmly pinned under the fallen tree, and no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't break free. Just then, the white fox reappeared. Seeing how clueless she was, it decided to teach her a lesson. The fox started digging at the dirt with its paws, and Liza suddenly understood. She followed suit, and eventually managed to pull her leg out. By then, night had fallen. She picked up a smoldering ember and, with the white fox, took shelter in a cave to spend the night. But just as she was about to sleep, she heard noises nearby. When she got up to check, she saw a swarm of rats. Terrified, she stumbled and crawled her way out of the cave, only to be hit by a downpour outside, completely breaking her spirit. The next day, while dozing off, Liza suddenly heard the sound of a speedboat. She waved frantically for help. The people aboard saw her and came over. There were 4 of them, claiming to be fishermen. At Liza's request, they agreed to check the spot where the billionaire had jumped off the cliff. When they arrived, they found him on the shore, barely alive with a head injury and bleeding heavily. Seeing the billionaire gravely injured, Liza broke down in tears, blaming herself. She begged the fishermen to help him, but to her shock, not only did they refuse, they finished him off. It turned out they had been hired to kill the billionaire. The mastermind behind it all wanted to take over his company. After the murder, they planned to silence Liza as well. One of the thugs suggested that before killing her, he wanted to have his way with her. The leader agreed, and Liza was dragged into a small grove. She fought back with all her strength, but was easily overpowered and pinned down. Just as the worst was about to happen, the thug suddenly coughed up blood and collapsed. A black-haired woman had come to her rescue. She pulled Liza onto her speedboat, but the remaining thugs quickly gave chase, leading to a high-speed pursuit on the water. The pursuers were relentless, and Liza and her rescuer couldn't shake them off. Suddenly, a reef appeared ahead. The black-haired woman made a bold decision. She gunned the engine and sped straight toward it. The thugs, unwilling to take such a risky move, slowed down and went around. That gave them a temporary lead, but now the speedboat was smoking. The woman quickly pulled over and told Liza to get off. But Liza stood frozen, completely lost. Cursing, the black-haired woman yanked her off the boat. Just as they ran a few dozen steps, the boat exploded behind them. Only then did Liza realize she'd just been saved once again. The two women fled into the forest, safe, for now. Liza wanted to know who the black-haired woman was, but to her surprise, the woman responded by giving her a beating. It turned out she was the billionaire's wife, there to find her husband. Liza quickly explained that she had no idea he was married, it was the billionaire who pursued her, and she had simply agreed to go on a trip with him. Nothing had actually happened between them. The more she spoke, the more wrong she felt. She had just come out for a bit of fun and ended up in a nightmare, even being mistaken for the other woman. Worried that Liza's crying would alert the thugs, the black-haired woman went over and hugged her to calm her down. After reconciling, the two bathed under the waterfall. Then, the woman prepared to go search for her husband alone. Not wanting to be left behind, Liza decided to come clean. She told her everything, how the billionaire had jumped off the cliff and was later murdered. Upon hearing the devastating news, the black-haired woman broke down in tears. Her husband may have been a scumbag, but he had never treated her poorly, and there was still love between them. After pulling herself together, she resolved to help Liza escape. She set up a trap using a makeshift mechanism, then lit a fire to produce smoke and lure the thugs into the ambush. Before long, the thugs arrived. One of them stepped into the trap and was struck by a hidden hook. The leader showed no concern for his injured subordinate, leaving him to fend for himself while taking the other thug to chase after Liza and the black-haired woman. Meanwhile, Liza and her companion had reached the shore and were trying to use the thug's speedboat to escape. The black-haired woman pushed the boat with all her strength, but it wouldn't budge. This time, Liza didn't just stand around helplessly, she grabbed a paddle and helped push. Just then, the thugs arrived, and one of them fired a shot, hitting the black-haired woman in the thigh. The boat had finally made it into the water, but she could barely move. She reached out, hoping Liza would pull her aboard, but Liza, frozen with fear, just cowered in the boat. In the end, the current carried Liza away on the speedboat, while the black-haired woman was left behind and captured. Realizing she'd been abandoned, she was furious and spat in Liza's direction with all the rage she could muster. And so, the black-haired woman was taken into the woods. Confronted by the vicious thug, she didn't flinch. Instead, she warned him that she was the daughter of the mountain god, and harming her would bring divine retribution. The thug scoffed at the claim, but then she began chanting an incantation. To everyone's shock, a fierce wind suddenly picked up, followed by heavy rain. Still, the thug remained skeptical, convinced she had simply checked the weather forecast beforehand and was now putting on a show. He grabbed her by the throat, choking her. Just when it seemed she was out of options, his own subordinate turned on him. He believed she truly had supernatural powers. The thug leader was killed, and the henchman dropped to his knees, begging her forgiveness. Just then, someone struck him from behind. It was Liza, who had come back. Apparently, she wasn't completely heartless after all. The black-haired woman, seeing this, finally calmed down. With the thug subdued and no longer a threat, the two women chose not to finish him off. They took the speedboat and left the area. Later, with Liza's help, the black-haired woman exposed the mastermind behind her husband's murder. Through it all, the two became bonded by life-and-death experiences and formed a deep sisterhood. In the final scene, Liza returns to the forest to find the white fox and thank it for saving her life. As she waves goodbye and boards a small boat to leave, the little fox unexpectedly hops aboard, ready to start a new life with them.